Petro voltou à Europa, tinha 45 anos de idade. Já era demasiada idade para uma pessoa para ser o que ele fazia. Então o estádio, o circo estava cheio e, conclusão, todos acreditavam nele, queriam ver, porque ele fez um salto mortal nos Estados Unidos de quadruple. Então todos estavam esperando e, infelizmente, eu estava em Londres, não pude falar com ele. E se eu pudesse ter falado com ele, eu aconselharia que ele fosse embora para sua terra natal, que é a Moldova.
It was going to be his big comeback. He asked to do his trick without any security. It was going to be all right. He was the best, but no one ever guessed. He tried the double, quadruple somersault, and without a safety net.
Han fick en visit före föreställningen började. Jag kan inte komma ihåg riktigt det var. Han blev mycket nervös. Men ingen vågade ju säga att han inte skulle uppträda. Det vågar vi ju inte.
He came out all excited. He warmed up quickly. Then he first did a double somersault. Then he went on to do a triple somersault. I mean, that was crazy for any young acrobat. There was always a net between the two trampolines. They were 10 meters apart from each other. But Lectus, he always insisted that there not be a net.
Caiu ou se deixou cair?
Well, I just started working at Cromwell Hospital as a young doctor. I was on duty that night. My superiors weren't there. They were at the circus. When he arrived, I couldn't believe it. He was the man who was in the papers. After 7 hours in surgery with some top doctors, we managed to save his life. But he didn't wake up and was in a coma for 20 years.
Jag träffade aldrig hans fru. Det var ju lika bra. De gifte sig i början på 30-talet i New York. Ja. Hon kom också från Europa, likadant som han. Ja. Det var ju inte undra på.
Se chamava Vitória, a mulher de sua vida. Se não fosse por ela, ele não teria ido aos Estados Unidos. Ela que o convenceu. Ela foi uma mulher fascinante e muito influente na vida dele. Ela sempre lhe incentivava, sempre o ajudou, o convenceu a ir para os Estados Unidos. E aí ele adquiriu a fama e chegou a ser o que hoje é, seria ser o mais grande.
Victoria was madly in love with him. She traveled with us in the caravan, she would help out. She sold refreshments during the shows. She was one of us. But he was obsessed with that quadruple somersault. Some friends tried to make him see it, but she just couldn't take it. Her man was risking his life with every trick that he did. Lectus had just gotten out of the hospital. He'd been told to rest for 10 days, but the day after he got out, he was back out there on the floor to do his thing, He went ahead and he performed anyway. And he did a triple. A very risky one too. But that's what he was like, Day after that, next day, she left. No one ever knew where to.
Hon tog tillbaka till Europa, till London. Han visste ingenting. Ingenting alls. Vi fick reda på det mycket långt efteråt. Ja. Hon började ett nytt liv med en advokat. Det är livet det.
He couldn't bear it. He realized he loved her when he lost her. And then he became even more fearless.
Ja. Den natten i London han råkade ut för olyckan. Ja. Hon hade varit där och hälsat på honom. Före föreställningen. Om inte hon hade kommit, jag vet inte. Det kanske, man vet ju aldrig. Man kunde ändra på det. Ja, vilken...
Lectus was my patient for 20 years. He was in a coma, yes, but he'd occasionally say something. Things that didn't make sense. But a name he kept saying throughout those 20 years was Victoria. He'd repeat this name a lot. He'd also mention other names like Lectica or Klein. Victoria came to see him at the beginning, but he never knew. I've got a theory, but I'll never be able to prove it. In the 20 years he was in a coma, I think Lectus created his own universe. He kept repeating names like Lectica and Klein. Well, who were they? People from his past or imaginary beings? One day, after 20 years, he regained consciousness. Just like that. He was lucid and he wouldn't stop talking. He talked about a world of beds and a journey through time and space. He talked about a point of weightlessness above a bed, which makes sense since he was a man who lived for trampolines, jumping between the earth and the sky. He was awake for 24 hours, but during that day he seemed obsessed with going back to sleep. We looked for someone to come and see him, but there was no one left. He died 24 hours later.